And okay, so let us now discuss about, of course, international human rights law, international criminal law, and international environmental law. Okay, so although these are, of course, these are usually trend topics nowadays because, of course, especially international criminal law, but of course, everything is relevant. These are now relevant things, especially of us having an evolving world order. Okay, all right. So because of our evolving world order, we have to contend with this already. These are now part of international law, okay? And it's you don't wag kayong magtaka na included to sa mga discussions going forward, all right? Okay, international human rights law, okay? Of course, what's the definition? So of course the definition of your international law of human rights, well, it is defined as the law which deals with the protection of individuals and groups against violations of governments of their internationally guaranteed rights and with the promotion of these human rights. Okay. Then, of course, I think I kind of discussed this before when we were discussing constitutional law too. But of course, we have to contend the concept of generations of human rights. Okay. So remember that we have to discuss first. Of course, we have to look at this on the purview of the UDHR. So we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If you read your Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the the declaration divides it into three generations. Okay? Although it is Karl Vasak, okay, in his article with the UNESCO who identified the tree. Well, you can now see that in that point of view. Okay, so if you're going to read the UDHR, there is this three generations of human rights. The first generation concerns civil and political rights. So these are specifically, of course, when we speak later on, we'll discuss on separate conventions. Okay, because aside from the UDHR, we have these core instruments. So these are, aside from the UDHR, parang siya yung general declaration. There are separate international conventions implementing or operating the UDHR. Okay, so we have of course the first generation. So insofar as first generation, meron tayong ICCPR o yung International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Okay? So ito yung usually na-discuss na itong mga civil and political rights. This is what we usually discuss sa Bill of Rights, di ba? So yung mga freedom of expression, freedom of religion, rights of the accused. Okay? So these are first generation of human rights. Then we have the second generation of human rights. So this concerns economic, social, and cultural rights. So ito yung mga second generation, like right to housing, right to work, right to education, right to accessible utilities like water and electricity, mga ganung bagay. So these are considered second generation of human rights. Note that these are covered by the ICESCSR o yung International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Okay. Then, third generation, we call this solidarity rights. Ngayon, medyo hindi pa to formative. These are rights that are still developing as of this date. Okay. And it still continue to evolve. So, this includes the right to development, right to self-determination, minority rights, right to a healthy environment, the right to peace, and the right to ownership of the common heritage of mankind. So, ito yung hindi pa sila nag-emulsify into to specific rights, but the third generation concept considers them as existing. Okay? All right. So then international human rights instruments. So as of now, I think there are 8 or 9 core instruments. But what you would see here in the slides are core instruments in which the Philippines has entered to and has ratified acceded. Okay? So ibig sabihin, ito yung mga applicability. Why do I have to point this out? Kasi later on we're going to discuss yung communicate yung filing of a complaint for communications. Kasi kung mapapansin nyo si itong mga treaties na to, of course you have these are treaty mechanisms eh. So kailangan, 'di ba, if we recall yung discussion na sa treaties, kailangan mag-entry into force ka or mag-accede ka or mag-ratify ka, 'di ba? There is this requirement eh para mag-become bound. Now, these are separate treaties, syempre convention law yan eh. May mga certain treaties in which aside from the main core instrument, we agree on optional protocols. Ano yung mga optional protocols? Ito yung mga protocols, these are mechanisms in which paano pag hindi nag-perform or hindi nag-deliver yung state mo, pwede mo silang ireklamo, 'di ba? Pwede mo silang ireklamo, 'di ba? Kasi lumalabas nagkakaroon siya ng human rights violation mo na hindi pinakikinggan ng state, okay? But that only happens kung meron kang optional protocols, okay? So ito yung mga international human rights instruments na na-ratify natin, pero some of them either kasi meron iba kasi may protocol, may iba wala, okay? So isa-isayin natin. So of course, we have the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, okay? So nag-accede tayo ng June 1986. Note that, di ba, kung naalala, I don't know kung na-encounter nyo ito sa criminal law, I don't know kung, or sa, hindi ko na sa criminal law, sa hindi sa political law, pero sa, more or less sa criminal law, di ba, yung naalala nyo, may portion doon, hindi ko na kung dinidiscuss pa rin ngayon yun, yung portion about the death penalty. Di ba, naalala nyo doon yung kaso ni Echegaray, di ba, ni Leo Echegaray. Nung trinay niyang i-stay yung execution niya through the Supreme Court, there was a discussion on trying to stop him because it might violate this convention and as well as the ICCPR. Pero this was the time na hindi pa tayo nag-accede dun sa optional protocol. So, what I'm saying is, syempre, kahit na signatory ka dun sa convention, it does not preclude that state from derogating from that convention. Although at the same time, you're not really violating that convention itself. Di ba? So, di ba, umakit sa Supreme Court, I think it's Echegaray versus Secretary of Justice, inexplain nila na, well, kahit na nag-sign tayo, hindi naman, it doesn't stop the Philippines from still implementing the death penalty, and especially, of course, the death penalty is something which is domestic or national, as a national law, di ba? So, hindi naman siya masa-stop. So, well, eventually, in 2012, nag-accede na tayo dun sa optional protocol. So, what I'm saying is, right now, di ba, may mga senators or congressman who wanted to impose death penalty. It has been in the news recently, di ba? Gusto nila, yung iba gusto sa drugs, iba gusto sa mga corrupt officials, di ba? Pag in the event na magkaroon ng ganyang law tayo, it's not going to be inevitable na may magrereklamo using the optional protocol of this convention. Okay? So, yun na doon, 'di ba? So pwede magkaso ngayon, 'di ba? Pagdating sa meron na optional protocol, okay? So we can consider that as torture because some jurisdictions are now considering death penalty as an implied as a form of torture na rin eh, 'di ba? So yan, pwede nang mag-file ng optional protocol pag nagkaroon ng death penalty as well as other acts of torture. So pwede, so example na na enforced disappearance ka, torture ka, before 2012, baka hindi mo maireklamo internationally, okay? Pero nowadays pwede na because may optional protocol na for this, okay? Then we have the ICCPR, okay? So the ICCPR is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So ito yung natin, yung nakikita natin, 'di ba? Oh. Then we have now, of course, the second optional protocol to the ICCPR aiming to the abolition of death penalty. So yun nga. So we have already acceded to this. Okay, so aside dun sa torture, and note, diba, yung kwento niyan eh. I think the story there, of course, you have to relate this also. Dahil meron ng optional protocol, pwede na rin ireklamo. Diba? Yung point naman ng protocol, you can complain kasi. Okay? You can lodge a complaint internationally. Now, whether or not it's going to be, we'll discuss that later, okay? Then, of course, Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. Ito, hindi pa natin pinirmahan to, okay? Then, itong interstate communication sa enforced hindi pa rin syempre natin pinirmahan, okay? So, pansinin niyo, ang daming mga core instruments, even if you go dun sa website nila. Pero may mga yan, pinirmahan lang natin, meron din tayong pinirmahan kulang-kulang lang. So, for example, ito, si Convention for the Elimination, si CEDAW, we already ratified that. And there's also a protocol on CEDAW. Kaya nga meron tayo, nakakapag-file tayo ng corporate communication. Note that, okay, then we have ICER, the International Convention of the Elimination of Forms of Racial Discrimination. We signed that, but then Convention for, then, okay, then, yan, si ICCSR, we are signatory. But note, may protocol si ICECSR, okay? Pero hindi tayo signatory doon. So, hindi makakapagreklamo pag, example, binilate your right to housing. You cannot go to the UN, okay? Unless lang if you're going to couch it as something which is another human right, that the HRC can have a jurisdiction. Then, si International Convention for the Protection of Rights of All Migrant Workers, wala din tayo sa protocol niyan. Tapos ito, si Convention of the Rights of the Child. Actually, may protocol yan. But we're not a signatory to the protocol. Okay? Sa CRC. Although, ang fun naman sa CRC, sa child, pwede mo siya ipasok pa rin sa HRC, doon sa ICCPR, yung Human Rights Council. Kasi, okay, then, of course, optional, ito, di ba, may optional protocol yan. Hindi pa, okay? So, ito naman sa child conflict. Then, we have the one on child pornography. Okay? Then, Convention ng Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Okay? So, alright. So, okay. So, protocol mechanisms under the International Human Rights Law. So, of course, sa ngayon, prevailing yung filing of complaint of communications with the HRC at saka CEDAW. Kasi yun yung mga protocols na talagang napirmahan talaga natin Okay? So, we're included in that mechanism. So, we have a share of cases. Okay? So, mangyayari dyan, example, na exhaust mo na lahat ng kaso mo dito sa Pilipinas. You already exhausted everything. What will happen now is, pupunta ka na sa Human Rights Council or sa CEDAW. Depende sa storya. Di ba? Okay. Then, of course, ano bang views nito? Of course, the views of the issued decision, kasi magkaka-decision yan Ano bang views niya? So, technically, it's recommendatory in nature. But note that, well, we're talking about public international law, where you can persuade the state to comply. Diba? By way of possible pressure, be it domestic or international. Yan naman yung point ng kaya 'di ba minsan naririnig natin 'di ba na parang, and recently yun nasabi ni Trump 'di ba sa UN Security Council na parang walang ma-form na solusyon ang United Nations kasi puro lang sila discussions on paper. But we cannot hurry something these are things that take quite a while okay? It takes quite a while. It takes patience naman talaga. Hindi pwede madaliin yan. Okay? Okay, anyways. So, syempre, ang issue ngayon, enforcement. Syempre, iba pinagtatawanan na kasi hindi ma-enforce. But eventually, there would be an enforcement mechanism there. It might not be now, but it will. At least, there is something on record to enforce. Diba? Such recommendation. So, example, may mga iba pang cases involving mga other groups. Pero, I am going to emphasize these three cases para lang ma-appreciate nyo. Of course, one is Karen Bertido. So this is a CEDAW communication. Nangyari kay Bertido, 'di ba? She was a victim of rape. No nagkaroon na ng desisyon, okay? Inakwit yung accused niya. Kasi allegedly siya daw yung nagpakita ng motibo, etc., etc. So, agree, syempre, na-acquit Hindi siya makapag-file ngayon ng exhaustion kasi double jeopardy, 'di ba? Nag-file siya ng complaint sa CEDAW. So the CEDAW came out with, of course, a discussion. Actually, ang na-form out dito sa CEDAW was, what happened was, Well, the CEDAW recognized and took into emphasis bakit ganun daw magdesisyon ang courts natin. Why are we deciding rape cases on the basis of sexual stereotypes. So 'di ba naririnig natin yung mga sexual stereotypes sa rape, yung kung kung may alak daw may balak, 'di ba, or naka-skimpy kasi yung dress kaya rinape ko, 'di ba? Yung mga 'di ba, yung mga sinasabi diyan eh. Ang sabi ng CEDAW, you should concentrate more on the consent rather than the stereotype. So in-enumerate nila stereotype and etc. etc. Okay? So what happened was, well, nag-rule sila in favor of Bertido. Now, aftermath. Well, si Bertido was not able to reap directly yung kasi may pwede kasi si communications, you can also recommend damages. Okay? Kung magkano dapat alam ko hindi niya nakuha yung damages. Then basta hindi naman niya na na satisfy meron siyang panalo pero hindi na satisfy. Although lately, 'di ba, the Supreme Court has been shifting their focus, 'di ba? Hindi na sila nagma-Maria Clara doctrine. They are now basing things on consent, 'di ba? Oh. They are now basing things on consent. Lahat ng decision nila tinitingnan nila kung consensual or not na ang rape. Then we have Adonis, okay? Of course, Adonis did not have any justice here kasi alam ko hanggang ngayon nakakulong pa rin si Adonis eh. Pero note that si Adonis, ang nangyari dito, nagsulat kasi siya ng scurrilous article involving a congressman na nahuli daw ng asawa niya sa isang motel at tumakbo siya nakaubad. Yun yung storya, allegedly, okay? So yung congressman, kinasuhan siya ng libelo, di ba? Oh. Well, for some reason, dahil, well, teritoryo niya yung lugar, na-guilty siya hanggang ending, okay? Hanggang ending, yeah. Hanggang ending, yun yung nag-istorya. Umakit ngayon siya ng umakit siya sa Human Rights Council with the help of his lawyer, the greatest lawyer of all time, Harry Roque. Yeah. This was the time that Harry Roque is doing this stuff, okay? So nanalo sila Harry Roque doon saka si Adonis. Sabi nila, sandali, sobrang stringent ng mga libel laws ninyo. Yeah, I think I discussed that in my book doon sa Green Book. Na-discuss ko ng konti si Adonis doon. Na-discuss ko ba si Adonis doon? Hindi ko maalala kung na-discuss ko. Pero there is this portion sa Adonis na dineclare nila na ang libel laws natin is draconian. Note that this was I think Adonis is a 2007 or 8 decision. Note that sinabi na ng Human Rights Council na draconian yung ating libel. This is even before cyber libel under your RA 10175. Kaya kung well, of course, syempre, again, we still have the state still has the prerogative to impose penalties, 'di ba? So, pero alam mo, isipin nyo, sinasabi na doon sa hindi pa nga cyber libel yung crime, draconian na nga yung ating libel laws 'di ba? What more pa ngayon na may cyber libel na under RA 10175. Pero yun ang sinabi ng Human Rights Council. It's beyond or violative of freedom of expression. Pero right now, wala nangyari, 'di ba? Walang nangyari. Hanggang ngayon hindi naman inaksyonan pa ngayon. Unlike sa Bertido, at least the Supreme Court is shifting to the consensual angle sa rape. Dito, of course, there are attempts like, 'di ba, yung People versus Tulfo na sinulat ni Justice Leonen. He has a discussion doon na dapat maging he has made an obiter there that you should a libel law should be civil na lang. Hindi na dapat criminalize ang libel. Okay? He is the one who said that dun sa sa Tulfo versus People. I think it's a 2021 case. So, yun, nagplant na siya ng seed doon, okay? So, minsan yung mga justice na nagpa-plant ng seeds yan So, to do something going forward And I think that's okay naman. it's a bit okay naman, at least we have something to start with. Okay? So yun yung ano doon, yun yung point doon eh. Okay? So then Malaya Lola. So this is the recent one. Remember yung Binuya versus Romulo, 'di ba na case? 'Di ba natalo sila hanggang MR noong 2014. So ang ginawa ng Malaya Lolas, okay? Ginawa ng Malaya Lolas, nag-file sila ng communication, ng complaint for communication sa SIDAW. Nag-file sila. Lumabas yung decision 2021. So kasi 'di ba, doon if you remember Binuya, ang depensa ang depensa ng Pilipinas kasi sa Binuya ng OSG, hindi na sakop yung hindi na sila pwedeng bigyan ng reparation kasi nangyari yung reparation nung matagal nang natapos yung giyera. Number two, lahat niya nabayaran na nung 1956, something like that. Kasi doon nagkaroon ng war reparations eh. Doon nagkaroon na ng agreement eh. I think 55 or 56, 1955-56. Pero yun yung point, 'di ba? Sinasabi lang hindi na sakop. Kaya na-dismiss yung kaso dito sa Supreme Court. Ginawa bakit sila sa sa SIDAW. Well, the SIDAW held that responsible yung Pilipinas to recognize their plight, 'di ba? Although lahat niyan kasi ito na 'yon. Ito yung mga things na doon pumapasok yung depensa. Ano yung defenses ng state respondent? Pwedeng prescribe na or lack of jurisdiction. Kasi wala pa yung SIDAW nung time na yun nung nangyari yun. Pwede lang gawin depensa yan. Pero commonly yung ginagawa, exhaustion of administrative remedies. Example, hindi mo na ipila hanggang dulo. Umakit ka agad ng SIDAW or ng HRC. Yan, pwede lang ireklamo na hindi ka nag-exhaust ng administrative remedies. Yan yung mga depensa dyan. So, ang ginawang depensa, syempre, as usual ng government, prescribe na or wala na jurisdiction si SIDAW dun sa claims because this happened even before the establishment of the SIDAW. Okay? Pero sabi ng SIDAW, hindi, responsible pa rin kayo kasi yung suffering nila parang inignore ninyo eh. 'Di ba? All throughout. Okay? Yun yung explanation na. Kaya nga, one of the reparations there is bigyan sila ng tribute na lang. Or syempre, aside from reparations, magbigay ng tribute of remembrance. Kaya nga napag-usapan doon yung Bahay na Pula. Na hanggang ngayon, hindi naman nila kinakalkal yung Bahay na Pula doon sa San Ildefonso. Kasi yung Bahay na Pula, yun yung transient house kung saan doon tinatransport yung comfort women. Yun yung significance ng Bahay na Pula na yon. Di ba nga, because, yung comfort women is still a diplomatic thing. And especially that we are trading partners with Japan, as much as possible, alam mo yon, ang attitude is they don't want to offend. Okay? Kaya nga ngayon, nakatiwangwang yung Bahay na Pula, andun, nagdidilapidate na slowly, di ba? Aside also from the fact na ginagawa siyang horror story tambayan ni Ed Caluwag, di ba? Pero well, aside from that, yun, napapabayaan lang, di ba? Pero nakalagay doon yung sa corporate doon sa sa SIDAW decision na you should make efforts to preserve that as a memory for those who are victims of being comfort women and as well as the atrocities of war. Yun ang sabi nila doon sa decision, okay? All right. Then international criminal law. So alam ko ito yung paborito ninyo, di ba? So of course, ano yung concept ng jurisdiction ng ICC? Of course, we have universal criminal jurisdiction. Okay? Kaya naalala niyo, di ba, yung discussion natin sa sa People versus Lolio on piracy, yung sila Pilartiga. Usually, when we speak of especially hostis humanis generis, yan yung example ng concept or a manifestation that we have universal criminal jurisdiction. Okay? Then, of course, we have to consider pa rin horizontality of international law. We'll relate that mamaya do sa huli kay Duterte. Okay? Which, of course, wala pang decision but we'll try to discuss it on international criminal law terms. Then, we have modern views on individuals as subjects of international law. So, isa yan, 'di ba, sa concept. Pwede mong maging responsible ang isang individual, okay? To a crime, okay? That may be committed, okay? Then we have this, of course, yung principle. So, yung competence si male captus bene detentus. Okay, so we'll discuss this later, okay? Then, of course, syempre, laging pinag-uusapan sa, note okay, we're already out, right now, we are still outside the ambit of the International Criminal Court, okay? I think that's the ano naman that's the fact right now, okay? That's the fact. But of course, because we have this case with Duterte, of course, we have already we have contended, or we have already are now a bit aware of what's happening with the Rome Statute or the ICC. And of course, we have been a member before. Of course, di ba, gasgas na gasgas yung issue ng complementary principle. So, of course, this principle means that the court will complement but not supersede national jurisdiction. National courts, okay, could continue to have priority investigating and prosecuting crimes committed within jurisdictions, but the ICC will act when national courts are unable or unwilling to perform their task. Okay? So, of course, this is reflected in your Article 17 of your Rome Statute. Okay? So, nakalagay kasi dito yung paano malaman kung may unwillingness ka to decide a particular case. Okay? So, in order to determine the unwillingness in a particular case, the ICC shall consider, having regard to the principles of due process recognized by international law, whether one of the more exists. So, A, the proceedings are or are being undertaken by, or the nationalism was made for the purpose of shielding the person concerned from criminal responsibility, and there is an unjustified delay in the proceedings in which the circumstances is inconsistent with an intent to bring the person concerned to justice. The proceedings were not or not being conducted independently or impartially, and they are or are being conducted in a manner in which in the circumstances inconsistent with an intent to bring the person concerned to justice. And in order to determine the inability of a particular case, the court shall consider whether due to a total or substantial collapse or unavailability of its national judicial system, the state is unable to obtain the accused or the necessary evidence or testimony to otherwise carry out its proceedings. Okay? So, kailangan hindi mo talaga matry. Now, I don't know, but of course, it would appear that, well, the Philippines cannot try Duterte. Kaya nasa ICC siya. Di ba? Oh. And, well, and with more reason that, of course, the Department of Justice or the executive branch is also admitting impliedly that they cannot. Okay? Kaya dinala nila sa ICC, di ba? Oh. Now, whether or not dinala sa ICC kasi natatakot sila sa pressure, that beats us. But the fact is, well, lumalabas hindi capable ang government ngayon to try them, di ba? Oh. Then of course, we have now the principle of this nebis id idem. So this is your equivalent of double jeopardy in ICC. Okay, so of course, the same individual cannot be tried or punished for more than one offense. Okay, that's in your Rome Statute. Okay, then official capacity is not a defense. Okay, ano ibig sabihin nito? Kasi syempre, mapapansin nyo, even if you check out all ICC cases, and even with Duterte, ang lagi niyang depensa is, he did that for the Filipino people. Okay? But, well, pwede niya kasi sabihin kasi na official capacity, presidente siya. Pag sinabi mo kasi official capacity, di ba, mangyayari governmental siya. So, in a sense, if you recall si immunity from suit, sasabihin niya immune ka from suit. Di ba? But the Rome Statute is clear that you cannot make as a defense official capacity or you're immune from suit. So, of course, the statute shall apply equal to all persons without any distinction based on official capacity. So, in particular, official capacity as a head of state of government, a member of a government or parliament, an elected representative, or a government official shall in no case exempt a person from criminal responsibility under the statute, nor shall it or in or of itself constitute a ground for reduction of sentence. Then immunities or special procedural rules which may attach to the official capacity of person, whether under international or national law, shall not bar the court from exercising its jurisdiction over such a person. Then, of course, syempre, alam naman natin, nakikita natin may trial, di ba? So, may mga presumptions of innocence yan or burden of evidence. So, sa Rome Statute, it is provided sa Article 66 that, well, everyone shall be presumed innocent until proved guilty before the court. Then, the onus of the prosecutor is to prove the guilt of the accused. And in order to convict the accused, the court must be convinced of the guilt of the accused beyond reasonable doubt. Now, kung babasahin nyo tong Article 66, especially the last part, lumalabas na, well, pareho sa korte ba natin yan? Kasi tayo rin, di ba, sa rules on evidence at saka sa special sa criminal procedure at saka sa rules on evidence, it's also proof beyond reasonable doubt in criminal proceedings. But the question now is, this is international law. And if you read articles about beyond reasonable doubt decisions with international tribunals, be it Rome Statute, be it other tribunals, medyo hindi siya similar sa pagkakaintindi natin ng reasonable doubt. Kasi 'di ba sa ating sa dito kasi sa atin, 'di ba, sa jurisdiction natin, 'di ba, sa rules on evidence, kailangan ba, yung certainty mo is it's really beyond moral certainty, 'di ba, na hindi mo ginawa yung crime. Of course, kung susundan natin yung criteria na yun, malamang makakalusot si Duterte, 'di ba, pag dito trinay. Now, ang tanong sa International Tribunal, although nakalagay yan sa Article 66 na it's beyond reasonable doubt, is it the same or similar to the Philippines? Diyan nagkakaroon yung parang hindi naman parang discrepancy because there are decisions, if you would see previous decisions, iba-iba yung appreciation ng tribunals. May iba yung iba iniisip lang yung beyond reasonable doubt, moral certainty. May ibang sinasabi nila basta maraming ebidensya. Okay? That's why what I'm really saying about international tribunals. And this is the reason why I'm saying most of the time that I'm not saying he's gonna lose, okay? But it's going to be difficult for him to fight there. Kasi yung appreciation ng tribunal is it's a cross finger thing kung sa point of view niya. Kasi lumalabas diyan, example, right now, presently, 'di ba, naglabas na ng pre-confirmation charge. Ang nag-appear lang 43, 'di ba? Usually ang litigation tactic kasi sa international tribunals, you just have to prove 'Di ba? You just have to prove one crime. So may 43 ka doon, 'di ba? Pwedeng mangyari doon, kahit isa lang o dalawa doon ma-prove, magigilty siya. 'Di ba? Ang anong tawag diyan? Ang end game mo naman lagi diyan is to secure the conviction. 'Di ba? And syempre, although syempre isuscrutinize 'yan, ang appreciation usually in international tribunals is more on the perception 'di ba? Kaya lalo na paano ko ang mindset nila is ang equivalence nila ng beyond reasonable doubt is preponderance. Marami lang kasing nabanggit yung prosecution. Medyo tagilid siya doon kasi medyo iba yung view ng international tribunal when it comes to accuse beyond reasonable doubt. Of course, yung ICC, of course, it's a 2000 creation. It's still a young, although we have previous tribunals in Rwanda and in the Baltic, in doon sa Yugoslavia, but of course these are still relatively young convention based tribunal so hindi natin alam kung ano yung magiging end result. But this is what I'm saying na that's the reason why gustong matarget siya sa ICC, si Duterte. Kasi, so for purposes of proving alleged crimes or atrocities that he committed, allegedly, it's easier to present that in an international tribunal in which an international tribunal would be able to appreciate it within their own scrutiny. Which the problem is, well, kung ikaw ay local lawyer, para mapoprostrate ka kasi lumalabas nalabnawan Di ba? Pero kung ikaw yung human rights lawyer for the victims, it's going to be an advantage or windfall for you because it's a bit of the evidence required is lower than what is the required highest standard. Okay? So yun yung point niyan. So hanggang ngayon, pa rin, may mga decisions na they are not settled on what constitutes beyond reasonable doubt. Of course, it's going to evolve over time, but we don't know what will happen in this case of Duterte, barring his health. Siyempre, of course, we know naman, I think naman, kahit naman sabihin naman ng ibang alam natin may health problems na yung tao eh. We don't know yung matter of when eh. 'Di ba? Although alam ko malakas ang genes niya. His mother lived until 100 plus eh. Pero 'di ba? Lot of factors, hindi natin alam ang fate, hindi natin alam ang mangyayaring sa susunod na kabanata, 'di ba? But regardless of what will happen to him, yun yung prognosis na nakikita ko diyan kasi yun yung nangyayari, okay? Then of course withdrawal from the Rome Statute, okay? So this is your Article 27. So una, kailangan magkaroon ka ng 1 year. Then of course, ang importante diyan si 127 paragraph 2. Yan yung parang the residual effect. So kung meron kang kaso before the withdrawal, meron pa rin jurisdiction si ICC, okay? So that was discussed in Pangilinan versus Cayetano kasi 'di ba, nag-unilaterally withdraw si Duterte. This was the time na he was at odds doing that, okay? Nagreklamo ngayon si Senator Pangilinan, inakit niya sa Supreme Court. Ang nangyari, actually, wala namang ginawa si Duterte. Ang nangyari nga lang, ginawa ng ICC, inaccept nila yung withdrawal. So, syempre, na-accept nila yung withdrawal, namutin academic na yung kaso. Kasi, in-accept na yung withdrawal eh. Although, nag-explain yung, of course, we know naman na nag-symbolical decision siya with the Youngstown Framework. Pero, insofar as the ICC discussion is concerned, well, diniscuss ng Supreme Court yung ano yung extent na liability. So because the withdrawal has been effective, tinake into consider nila na since the withdrawal took effect on March 17, 2019, di ba? Meron pa rin silang obligasyon sa Rome Statute up until March 17, 2019. Alam naman natin, all of the supposed alleged international crimes of Duterte was committed before that March 17, 2019 date. Covered pa rin ang Pilipinas. We are bound. Now, syempre nagkaroon syempre ng issue dun sa how are you going to implement? And that has been the running question, okay? At alam naman natin, yung supporters nila Duterte, they're saying that, well, dahil wala na tayo sa Rome Statute at pag pinapasok natin Rome Statute, violation ng sovereignty. Not totally correct. Okay? Not totally correct. Okay? But not totally correct. Una, nakapasok nga eh. Nahuli nga siya eh, di ba? Oh. Pero of course, the next question is, valid ba yung pagkakahuli niya? Okay? So, kung babalikan natin yung previous slides, we have this concept of male captus bene detentus. Okay? So, ano ba yung male captus bene detentus? Okay? Well, dinideny pa rin nila na nag-apply yung male captus because, well, hanggang ngayon, nasa Supreme Court pa rin yung kaso. As we are speaking right now, nasa Supreme Court pa rin yung case eh. 'Di ba? Nag-file ng certiorari si De La Rosa, si Senator De La Rosa. Tapos 'di ba nag-file ng habeas corpus yung mga anak niya after she was already shipped to The Hague, 'di ba? Nasa aeroplane na in transit na siya noon eh, 'di ba? May nag-suggest, although sinasabi na hindi pa applicable, hindi ko alam kung ano sasabihin ng Supreme Court, but just to have a concept, ano ba yung male captus bene detentus? Kung naalala niyo yung si Eichmann, 'di ba? Si Adolf Eichmann. 'Di ba, nagsistay siya sa Argentina. Siyempre, pag nag-resort sa diplomatic channels or regular diplomatic discourse ang Israel, tataka si Eichmann. 'Di ba? Alam niyang huhulihin siya ng Israel eh. 'Di ba? Kaya 'di ba ginawa ng Israel, nagpasok ng Mossad. In-infiltrate yung Argentina, sinurveillance si Eichmann, kinidnap nila at the right time, shinip nila pabalik na Israel. Siyempre, nagreklamo yung Argentina. Nagreklamo sila. Invasion ng sovereignty natin yan. Di ba? Pero di ba, ano sabi eventually? Well, Israel invaded sovereignty, it does not invalidate the capture. It does not invalidate Eichmann being sent to Israel and eventually getting executed. Okay? Yan ang sinasabi, ina-argue ng iba na nag-malecaptus. Yun yung sinasabi ng iba na gina-justify nila yung paghuli kay Duterte because of this malecaptus benedetentus principle. Okay? Although I think si Dean Gemay does not agree that it is applicable on force, but if you can look at it, it's also a bit also relatable. Okay? So, 'di ba? Yun yung ano doon eh. Now, ang next question is, pwede bang isend ng Pilipinas si Duterte? Siyempre, sasabihin ng mga supporters ni Duterte, traidor, 'di ba? Traidor ang ating presidente kasi pinadala niya eh. 'Di ba? Shinip niya sa dahig eh. Siyempre may pending cases pa rin, 'di ba? Pero just to discourse on it on an academic level. Number one, tandaan natin, hindi absolute ang sovereignty natin. Okay? What matters, 'di ba? I've been discussing this. What matters when it comes to international law is external sovereignty, which means you can technically waive your sovereignty from time to time. Okay? You can waive your sovereignty from time to time. Number two, universal criminal jurisdiction. I don't know if the ICC would justify that or the Supreme Court will mention this. Pero tandaan natin, ano ba crime ni Duterte? 'Di ba? Alam natin sa EJK. Pero 'di ba, under the ICC, most of the crimes listed in the ICC are international crimes. To an extent, they are hostes humanis generis. And since they're hostes humanis generis, anyone can have jurisdiction. 'Di ba? So kahit na wala ng jurisdiction, wala na tayong jurisdiction kasi yun nga peculiarity kasi sa Rome Statute. It's a convention type of court. So pag umalis ka dun sa convention, syempre di ka na bound. Pero again, babalik tayo dun sa universal criminal jurisdiction. Who would stop the ICC? Syempre, alam natin may Article 127, Paragraph 2. But let's assume walang residual issue yan. Walang nakalagay na Article 27, Paragraph 2. Technically, the ICC as a recognized international tribunal can still continue with the trial. Kasi, ang crime na pinag-uusapan natin dito are hostes humanis generis. It's something that, the ICC can assume jurisdiction as they want. Kaya babalik ulit tayo dun sa concept i-relate mo siya dun sa concept ng competence. Although competence is usually used in your arbitration, sa arbitration nyo naririnig si competence sa international arbitration. But, ibig lang sabihin kasi ng competence, if the court has jurisdiction, we will not get out of this, we will not divest or we will not deny the jurisdiction. So, the ICC or the court itself, sa tingin nyo, magbibitaw ba ng jurisdiction yan? Siyempre, medyo kahiyaan na yan eh. Bakit ko i-atras yung jurisdiction? Diba? I-insist ko may jurisdiction ako, 'di ba? Yun ang magiging essence nun, 'di ba? Magwi-withdraw ka, edi mas napahiya yung ICC. Of course, the direction of the ICC would to retain the jurisdiction, okay? That's the point there. Okay. Another point is this. Dahil pwede mo nga i-waive yun, balik tayo sa external sovereignty. So kung pwede ka mag-waive ng external sovereignty, sino na ba pwede mag-waive nun? 'Di ba? Presidente ng Pilipinas. Anong nangyari pag winave ng presidente ng Pilipinas ang tanong, pwede ba niya i-waive? Pwede niya i-waive. Kaya nga, I didn't really find it satisfactory. Yung explanation din kasi ni BBM. I don't know who's telling him this and that. Pero, alam mo yun, sana na-planche niya Example, na-ship na si Duterte outside, lumipad na yung plane. Yung sagot niya is parang laging napansin niyo kahit naman ngayon 'di ba? Ang laging explanation parang dead ma lang or parang patay mali siya na. Ay ganun ba 'yon or sasabihin niya lang parang mga blasé lang sinasabi niya. Alam mo kung siguro in-explain kasi ni Bibi. Ako gusto ko lang naman siya maging successful din regardless of the criticism, 'di ba? Ayoko lang siya mapahiya din naman si President. But the point is this. Kung sinabi niya na kung ang sinabi niya na lang I have to do this because we need to comply with our international obligations. We still have to comply with the Rome Statute, 'di ba? And since all the crimes that were committed by Duterte were already done before the withdrawal, I think we have to comply with international law because we are part of that eh. Kung ganun siguro explanation niya, parang sabihin niya, of course, I made the decision that of course, I have also the power to surrender him, di ba? Oh. Kung ganun sana explanation niya, di sana 12-0 sila nung 2025, di ba? Oh. Maganda sana yung delivery. Nangyari, ang dating ng mga explanation niya is not unifying. It still tends to create discord, especially that the mess that we have right now as we are talking. 'Di ba? Oh. Yun yung nangyayari ngayon. Oh. That's what's happening. Okay? Isa pa may isa pa palang kicker 'yan. Even if you're not a member of the Rome Statute or you withdraw from the Rome Statute, may mechanisms ang Rome Statute. May mechanisms yan. Pwede siyang mag-request ng third-party assistance. What I'm saying is, kaya nga noon, I was saying before, before this government surrendered Duterte, sa totoo lang, mas malaki ang protection niya sa Pilipinas. Instead of him going to exile to either Russia or China. You know why? Kasi, sa Pilipinas, dapat protektado siya. Di ba? Doon na siya, tambay lang siya sa Davao eh. In contrast sa mag-exile siya sa China or Russia, may mechanism ang ICC na pwede mag-cooperate. Di ba? Siyempre, international organization yan. Hindi siya state, pero non-state actor yan. Pwede mag-negotiate yan. Alam natin, si Russia hinahabol ng, sabihin na natin, nag-exile si Duterte sa Russia. Okay. Who would stop Russia from cooperating eventually with the ICC? And cornered ka. Kasi nasa dayuhang kang bansa, biglang nag-decide si Putin, isurrender ka. Diba? Malaki yung chance na gano'n na mangyari. Note that Putin has a case with the ICC. It would not stop Putin from making that as a ex-deal na i-withdraw yung charges sa kanya, pero ang kapalit ng ulo si Duterte. Pwede mangyari yon. It may be far-fetched, but it's possible under international law, or it's something that is hidden behind the shadows. Ganun din sa China. China is, kahit sabihin natin galit-galit sila sa US, di ba? Or yung US ayaw din sa ICC, di ba? But who would stop China or the US from cooperating with the ICC? Oh. 'Di ba? So, kung tutuusin, walang protection si Duterte pag nagpa-exile siya. Kaya yung ibang nagkakalat diyan na mag-exile siya sa China bago siya mahuli, it's not a believable story because mas protektado siya sa Pilipinas. There's no reason for him to go to exile because he is more vulnerable sa exile. Nangyari, what happened was, of course, we'll go now to justified ba yung ginawa ni Actually, alam ko there are two arguments there. Of course, kung ako tatanungin nyo, lahat ng ginawa nila Torre doon sa airport, lahat noon human rights violations yon. Okay? Lahat yan, violation ng Bill of Rights. It's a blatant violation of Bill of Rights. Whether it's an enemy or not, it's a blatant violation of human rights. Saan ka nakakita? Sinerve mo yung warrant. Wala kang Sinerve mo yung warrant. Ikaw ba, alam ko may mga pulis dito na nandito, may kakilalang pulis tulad si Louis Saballa. Hi, Louis. so di ba? Alam mo 'yon? May mga pulis ako, mga students din, di ba? Alam nila yan na hindi ka makapag-serve ng warrant walang papel. Ano yan? Electronic lang. Di ba okay lang kung electronic warrant pero officially issued by the PNP. Pero mag-enforce ka ng warrant na international warrant. Di ba? There would always be more questions than answers. Alam natin, it's illegal. It's an illegal under our constitution. Pero syempre, kung ang pinag-uusapan na natin ay politics at sa international politics and acts of state, pwedeng ma-justify ni BBM yan. Kasi kahit naman hindi aminin, ang dami ng investigation. Hindi naman lumalabas ang name ni BBM. Pero obvious naman sino head of state siya, di ba? But he has a defense naman. Actually, what he did was, well, I can consider it as an act of state. Yun ang depensa niya doon. It's an act of state. Kailangan niya mag-comply sa obligations ng ng Rome Statute eh. Compelled siya eh. Oh. That's a possibility. That's his defense. Okay? That's a possible defense that he can do. Okay? Yun nga lang, yun na, andito na tayo sa sitwasyon kung saan flood control na ang pinag-uusapan at minsan pumapasok ang Duterte sa storya. Okay? So, yan yung storya niyan. Okay? That's my view there. Okay? I would not, yung ginawa nila, yung, as a constitutional law professor, alam ko it violated a lot of things. Okay? Whether kalaban yan or hindi, equal ang application nyo dyan. Yun ang dapat dyan eh. Diba? Oh. Yun lang ang sa akin dyan. I look at it at an emotional point of view eh. Yung nangyayari kasi, because of all the fervor, puro emotional lang. Na minsan nakakalimutan natin, everyone has the same right of human rights. Of due process. Lahat ng human rights eh. Diba? Okay. All right. So that's our international criminal law, okay? Insofar as to the extent of this, okay? Then we have now international environmental law. So medyo sinuggest to sa mga recent syllabi sa sa bar coverage ng mga exam. And I think this will still be included, okay? All right. So ano ba ang kailangang natin malaman? So of course, sovereign right to exploit natural resources and its limitation. So, of course, states have, in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and the principles of international law, of course, they have the sovereign right to exploit their own resources pursuant to their own environmental policies and the responsibility to ensure that activities within their jurisdiction or control do not cause damage to the environment of other states of areas beyond the disputes of national jurisdiction. So this is your Principle 21. Ito yung tinatawag na Stockholm Declaration on the Human Environment. In this regard, of course, according to the Stockholm Convention, states shall cooperate to develop further the international law regarding liability and compensation for the victims of pollution and other environmental damage caused by activities within the jurisdiction or control of such states to areas beyond their jurisdiction. Now, to this end, you have to refer to Article 93, 193, 194 of your UNCLOS. So, of course, states have the sovereign right to exploit their natural resources pursuant to their environmental policies and in accordance with their duty to protect and preserve the marine environment. States shall take by all measures necessary to ensure that the activities under their jurisdiction or control are so conducted as to not to cause damage by pollution to other states and their environment, and that pollution arising from incidents and activities under their jurisdiction or control does not spread beyond the areas where they exercise sovereign rights. Then, of course, we have this concept of the precautionary principle in international environmental law. In order to protect the environment, the precautionary approach shall be widely applied by states according to their capabilities. Where there are threats of serious or irreversible damage, lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures to prevent environmental degradation. So, to this end, of course, the party should take precautionary measures to anticipate, prevent, or minimize the causes of climate change and mitigate its adverse effects. Where there are threats of serious or irreversible damage, lack of full scientific certainty should not be used as a reason. Okay? So to achieve this, such policies and measures should take into account different socio-economic contexts, be comprehensive, cover all relevant sources, sinks and reservoirs of greenhouse gases and adaptation, and comprise all economic sectors. Efforts to address climate change may be carried out cooperatively by interested parties. So, ano ibig sabihin nito? So, alam mo, may maririnig kayo sa internet, di ba, na parang yung mga climate change programs are scammy, di ba? Wala naman daw basis yung, di ba, may mga climate change deniers eh. But note that under the precautionary principle, notwithstanding those, hindi pa pwede na hindi mo pwedeng i-protect hindi ka pwedeng mag-create ng measures to protect the environment, okay? And of course, ang pinakamainit talaga naman dyan is, of course, kung may protection ka na environment, of course, we have the pollution and all the stuff. Pero how about the threat or use of nuclear weapons? Of course, that's something which will affect the environment. We all know what happened to Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all of those all of those nuclear testing in in the Pacific, di ba? Hindi lang naman US yan, pati Britain, pati France, pati nagte-test dyan. Then of course, we're not even talking about Russia who test north of Siberia, okay? But of course, this threat of use of nuclear weapons, there would always be an environmental implication, okay? Now, what is this? So of course, we go back dun sa advisory opinion dun sa threat ng nuclear weapon. So of course, the ICC here, of course, it recognizes that the environment is under daily threat and that the use of nuclear weapons would constitute a catastrophe for the environment. Of course, the ICC recognize the ICC, ICJ, International, sa ICJ to, si International Court of Justice, okay? So the ICJ also recognizes that the environment is not an obstruction, but represents the living space, the quality of life, and very health of human beings, including generations unborn. The existence of the general obligation of states to ensure that activities within their jurisdiction and control and respect the environment of other states or of areas beyond national control is now part of the corpus of international law. However, of course, well, it is of the view that the issue is not whether the parties relating to the protection of the environment are applicable during an armed conflict, but rather whether the obligations stemming from these treaties are intended to be obligations of total restraint during military conflict. So the court does not consider that the treaties in question would have intended to deprive the state of the exercise of its right of self-defense. Siyempre, kung may nuclear arms ka, siyempre, hindi mo na mapipigilan di gamitin yan, di ba? But nonetheless, states must take environmental considerations into account when assessing what is necessary and proportionate in the pursuit of legitimate military objectives. Respect for the environment is one of the elements that go to assessing whether an action or conformity with the principles of necessity and proportionality. Okay? This approach is supported indeed by, of course, yung Rio Declaration and yung mga other declarations, okay, which, of course, particularly in the Rio Declaration, it provided that warfare is inherently destructive of sustainable development. States shall therefore respect international law, providing protection for the environment in times of armed conflict, and cooperate in its further development as it may be necessary. And that is it for international human rights law, international criminal law, and international environmental law.